Welcome to episode 100 of PixlFeed Radio, and I'm here with Nik Amabile. Nick, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Christian. Thanks for having me on. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Listen, before we get into it, for those of you listening who've been here from day one or like picked up halfway around, half of the journey there. Never in a million years I would thought I would stick to 100 episodes, and obviously I'm going to keep going now, but I made it work. So it's a good thing.
That's awesome. Congrats. Yeah.
Thanks, man. And you're here for it. So I'm excited.
Awesome.
We're going to talk about data, especially in a post iOS 14 world, which, I don't like Tim Cook. But, Nick is the CEO and principal of a firm called DAS42. Obviously, they're specialized in data. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the firm?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So DAS42 is a boutique data and analytics consulting firm. Essentially, we have capabilities across the full stack of data and analytics. So that's data engineering, data warehousing, business intelligence, analytics, and applications. And we've been really lucky to work with really awesome customers, everyone from Fortune 500 to small startups and everyone in between, lots of different industries. My personal background before starting the consulting firm was as the head of BI at Jet.com, and prior to that was in senior analytics roles at Etsy. So I have a lot of experience on both sides of the table, both as a consultant, but also as a practitioner internally. So yeah, that's us.
Yeah, I have a really good friend of mine, and he works for a company specializing on compiling all the data together. So he's like an Excel master. And every time
Awesome.
I'm like a total noob still to this day when it comes to Excel. I know the basics and that's it. And so I annoy him all the time. I'm like, dude, why did the formatting change halfway down the page? How do I fix this? And he just laughs. But then he tries to run Facebook ads, and then I laugh when he asks me the question.
Oh, there you go. Right. To each his own.
So it's even. So Jet.com, huh? You work for Jet.com?
It was great. I mean, it was a wild ride. I mean, like that, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with that company. So it was as an e-commerce company. I think it was the fastest e-commerce company to get to $1 billion in sales.
That's how I know them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. They blew up really quickly. And so, I was there for about 7 months. To be honest, it felt like a lifetime. In that 7 months, we set up their full data platform, modern cloud-based data and analytics platform on Airflow and Looker, business intelligence technology. But the firm was subsequently sold to Walmart in the largest e-commerce transaction ever. I think at the time it was, $3-point-something billion. It was nuts. So, I mean, it was a wild ride, learned a ton, met a ton of great people. And since actually we've been consulting with Walmart at DAS42, as well as a number of the other folks at Jet who have gone on to start other e-commerce and direct-to-consumer companies. So we've worked with a number of those folks and still count many of them as friends and colleagues. So it was a fantastic run. Yeah.
So before we get into the whole e-commerce, Apple, iOS 14, which I'm sure everybody who's watching this and listening to it, that's all they want to know about. But as somebody who just launched his 4th brand, I exit the other ones. I still have one, but that's a dropship. It doesn't count. I'm having such a hard time because we literally launched as soon as iOS 14 hit, and I literally underestimated how bad it was going to be. Because costs are through the roof. Obviously, everything's getting blocked. So I'm curious to see what you guys are doing on your end to deal with all that stuff. But again, before we get into e-commerce, Facebook, Apple, how did it all start for you? Obviously you were a computer geek like I am. So, I was too stupid to get a computer science degree.
Man.
Like, I cannot get past algebra 2 and calculus. It's just, I failed algebra 2 like 3 times, I think it was. And then calculus, forget it. But I tried. So
I'll say I went to school for economics, not computer science, which I think, I know, right? I know, it's funny because these days now there's tons of different like analytics programs, like masters in business analytics programs and boot camps and stuff like that. Like when I went to college, there wasn't any of those type of programs. So you kind of had to pick.
How old are you?
I'm 35. So,
okay, I'm 41. Not super so I'm just trying to get an idea, of what computers you grew up with.
Exactly. Well, I still remember a day before computers, and I also remember a day before the internet, of course.
Me too.
But that was the thing that really got me excited was actually computer games and early computer games.
Yeah, man, me too.
I was like, this is awesome. Like, how do you make these things? How does this work? You just kind of start to peel back the onion a little bit. Yeah.
What was your favorite games growing up? Because I was like an adventure guy. Like I loved all the adventures games. Anything by Sierra, I owned all of them. I still own the remasters. Full Throttle was one of my favorites, which I actually just replayed not too long ago. All those games were there was something about them, man. They were so simple, but they were so immersive. And then, of course, Doom came out and all that stuff.
Yeah, Doom. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your favorite games growing up?
Yeah, I was a big like Doom, Wolfenstein.
Yeah.
I liked what else? Like a whole bunch of stuff. Like trying to do some of the adventure games. I remember like there was a Jane's flight simulator thing with like fighter jets and stuff like that. That was pretty sweet. But it's funny because like when you try to run those games like back in the old computers, like the old PCs and stuff, like they would inevitably not work, and you'd have to like hack the BIOS. You'd have to like do all kinds of stuff, like get into the command prompt and stuff like that.
Going to the sound card and change I don't even remember what it was, but you got to choose the MIDI channel, whatever. Exactly. I remember sitting on support with Sierra, like I can't get sound, and they will walk me through it. I mean, God, man, we're going back to the DOS, signing into DOS and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, you go into DOS and everything, the BIOS, and then
what? Though, now that we talk about this, and people are listening, they know I'm a total computer nerd. You know what I miss? Like I love Steam and all that stuff, and I can just download a game like as soon as it comes out. Obviously, it's super awesome. But I do miss like going to it's now GameStop. It used to be eBay back at not eBay, EB Games back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And like walking in and seeing the big computer game boxes. You remember those?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then you'll be so excited, like, oh my God, there's all these new games. And the only way you found out about it was like with the magazines and all that stuff. I don't know, man. There was something about it. Maybe it's because I grew up with it. And there was something cool about it, being all the marketing materials. That's why, I'm in marketing now.
Well, so PC Gamer would have all the parts list. They still do, online and stuff like that. And so I started building computers and all that kind of stuff. And, that was the thing that you wanted to have like the dual graphics cards with SLI, the views or whatever.
Drama,
I can't remember.
Here, I'll tell you my drama right now.
Yeah.
The computer that I'm on right now is a desktop that I built. You ready for this?
Okay.
It's because I just went back to check when I built it. 11 years ago, but everything's overclocked. Oh, wow. So I can still run, and I spent a pretty penny on it when I built it, and I can still play games on like high graphics. Not all of it, obviously, but I can still play games on high graphics. I'll still get like if it's a first-person shooters, I can still get like 50 frames per second out of it. Okay. Which is decent, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: this thing keeps crashing on me left and right, and I'm pretty sure it's either the chip or the video card or the graphics card. And obviously, I cannot get my hands on a decent card that somebody's not charging like $5,000 for.
Yeah.
So dealing with that stuff. Anyway, that was my geek out bitching for a minute because I really want to build a new computer. I see all these cool builds, and I'm like, I want one.
I just built one during COVID. I had nothing better to do, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go make a build. And so,
what card did you get though?
So I had a GeForce, was it 2080 Ti? I had that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna admit I did splurge on
on the new video card.
Yeah, 3080. So I got a 3080 Ti now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. But I was like looking and like it's like a local Micro Center had it. They weren't selling it online. It was in store only. So I was like drove over there, grabbed it.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago I found out that Best Buy was having a drop like an hour away from where I live, and I'm like, okay, I'm totally gonna go see if I can get one.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, if I wake up at 4, get there at 7, I'll get a ticket and then I can get in, and hopefully I can get at least a 3080 or a 3090 for now.
Yeah,
the 3090 is what I really want, but whatever.
Me too. Yeah.
And I get there, there's already like a line wrapped around the building. I'm like, yeah, that's not happening.
Oh, geez.
There's that. All right. So you grew up with computers, grew up with all that stuff. Obviously you are where you're at now because of that. So, and I don't want to take a lot of time going back in time, but so let's get started. So you left jet.com, decided to start a company. What was that move like? What gave you the idea?
Yeah, it was just one of those things where like I felt a pretty, I was lucky to be ahead of the curve at places like Etsy and Jet, being able to use technologies at the time like Hadoop and stuff like that, which were relatively new, and then Spark and things like that. So, I felt that I had learned a lot of things the hard way, by banging my head against the wall and trying to figure these different challenges out. And so actually it's funny because after I left Jet, I went to go interview at a bunch of companies here in the New York area. I live in the New York City area. And everyone wanted me to do the same thing, which was like set up their data warehouse, set up their BI tool, make sure all the data is like matching for different reports. And I was like, man, if everyone's asking me to do the same thing that I just did at Jet, and then before that I was at Etsy, there must be a thing here, right? There must be some sort of market if everyone needs and has the same problem. So I was like, you know what? I'll start my own thing, just doing consulting. And I realized that, there's awesome technology out there, and there still is today, right? For data and analytics, there's awesome technology. And the problem is not really a technology problem. It's more of like a people problem, right? It's a process problem. It's having folks who have the experience and know how to translate the business problems into sort of a technical solution. I realized that was kind of what I was good at. And, I was never going to be a software engineer and, create, the next Facebook or anything like that. I always wanted to start my own company. So I was like, look, if I can go and start my own company, pick my clients, work from home, focus on getting better at the work as opposed to, kind of corporate BS and, kind of rising through the ranks. I was like, I still want to be hands on keyboard. So that was really the motivation. And to see if I could start and just make a living doing that, I would have been happy doing it. Since then, it's just really just blown up. I ended up being, kind of lucky in terms of the timing, the whole digital transformation and sort of cloud adoption. And the enterprise has just been a huge tailwind. And so now we're 65 people, based mostly in New York and Denver. And like I said, we've worked with really awesome customers, like Uber and Amazon, Snapchat, Dropbox, Walmart, Disney, others. It's been a great ride. So, feel really lucky. And I think there's a lot more work to go do. Right. So
yeah, that's awesome. So now I'm curious on how you grew the business. So I'm assuming when you decided to start a company, you started with like someone else, or
I started with one other person. I started one other person that I used to work with, a colleague of mine from Etsy and Jet. But it was really just, I was able to, I always wanted to start a business that I could start with like a laptop and a cell phone, you know what I mean? Like no other expenses. It doesn't, that didn't need.
Yeah, me too. And work from anywhere in the world. And then I got married and had kids. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. That's life taking its course. Right. But yeah, same idea though, right? I was like, look, I'm going to start it with a buddy of mine who is also in analytics, and we were just going to do the work ourselves and, write all the code and do all the work ourselves. And it worked out. Unfortunately, my old partner left, which was a bummer, but he's on doing awesome things now. He's a great guy, and we're still friends. And then, we just bootstrapped it from there though. We got one small customer here in New York that no one's ever heard of. Our second customer ended up being Amazon. And
Amazon was your second. How did you even land that?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have a partnership driven model in our business. And so I was a Looker customer at Etsy and Jet.com. And so Etsy was a pretty early customer of Lookers. And I got to know a lot of their executive team, their sales team. And
so people hop around and they're like, let's bring DAS in. Yeah,
exactly. And so I actually, when I was thinking about starting the company, I was like, I called somebody else up at Looker and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about starting like a consulting firm, and we would do Looker consulting. I was like, should I do that? Is that a thing? Does that exist? And they're like, yeah, you should do that. So I was like, okay, cool. So I did it. And then they basically gave us a bunch of customers, our early customers. And then, to your point, it's like a chicken and the egg thing, right? Once you get one or two really big customers, you're able to really kind of bootstrap it from there. So it's been bootstrapped for the last, let's call it 5 years. We did just get some private equity investment earlier this year. To really grow the company. We think there's a great opportunity to really tackle the problems that we see across companies, really.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what it is that you see, because like the client, okay, so I have my agency side of things is boutique, very small, few clients that I can literally count with two hands, because I want to be involved and I have no desire whatsoever to have a huge agency. That has never been my dream. It's one of those things that I do it because I enjoy seeing how different stuff works in different niches, and I like helping people, Now, with that said, with my type of agency, I don't get to deal with the Nikes of the world. That's just, they work with massive agencies out there, or internal teams for that matter. So a lot of the times when I'm digging into data, not only from my end, but when I'm looking at their back end, there's so much stuff that I just catch. I'm like, why aren't you guys taking advantage of this stuff? Like, look at the data here. Like, you're not like, it just like, it baffles me that people don't know what they can take advantage of. So I'm curious to see like how these huge companies, what they're looking at, what they're, I don't know what you can talk about, obviously.
No, yeah. I could certainly talk generally.
Keep it generic. So what okay, so let's start with e-commerce, because I'm in e-com and I just launched a new brand.
Cool.
So I'm going to obviously I look at all the data from the ads, click to rate, add to cart ratio, purchase, all that stuff. Then on the back end, I'm looking at like, who's my VIP customers, returning customers, browsing customer, top 25% spent on the site. I can bring it down to like, I want to target people who have been on the site 5 times in the past 30 days on a certain page, product page or collection. So obviously stuff like that, emails, then you got your VIPs, you can segment the list and all that good stuff. But I'm assuming, because I talked to my buddy who's a data analyst, and when he's piling this data for these huge companies. The one he's in, it's in healthcare, so it's like one of the biggest healthcare companies in the U.S. So he told me a little bit about not what they do specifically, but generic wise. So I'm curious to see, when you go to a company like I don't know, like e-commerce. Let's talk about e-commerce. Like when it's a huge, massive company, what is the first thing that you guys look at and start? And what do you start building from there, or segmenting, I should say?
Yeah. Right? I mean, it's all the stuff that you just talked about. I mean, so it's not like from a metric perspective that we see issues, because I think, again, there's a lot of great best practices out there in terms of funnel analysis, conversion rate analysis, all the kind of stuff that you talked about, cohort analysis, that kind of thing. So a lot of times it's not that folks don't know that they should be doing it. It's just they can't, because their systems or technology or processes are limiting them. And so, for example, in a lot of really big companies, there's obviously very huge silos of data and of people, right? So the left hand isn't necessarily talking to the right hand. There could be one system for customers and transactions. There could be another system for kind of clickstream type data. There could be another, obviously, multiple systems for marketing, activation, and things like that. And a lot of times these systems just don't talk to each other, right? And so our first goal whenever we come into a customer is to centralize their data in one place, so that they can have their customer data next to their transaction data, next to their clickstream data, next to their marketing data. And that is kind of a little harder than it may sound intuitively, because even like a small business like DAS42, we're probably running 30 different SaaS applications that run our business, right? And that means there's 30 different data sets out there that we have to look at to create a picture of our business. And obviously you can see how very, very large companies start to just multiply that. So it's really these data silos that exist that folks can't get centralized very easily. And that's really where we come in. We set up all the data pipelines to centralize that data in one place. Typically that's in like a Snowflake or a data warehouse. It's something that's scalable, cloud-based data warehouse. That's the first step, centralize the data. Then the second step is typically to solve a problem around, if you ask 10 different people for how many orders you had yesterday, there's probably going to be 10 different answers, right? You're going to have the different data set that I'm going to have. And so the second real piece, once the data is centralized, is to standardize all that stuff, so everyone's speaking the same language and talking off the same sheet of music.
Okay. So obviously there's a structure that you follow when you guys take over and go in there.
Yep.
So I'm trying to think. I'm just trying to picture in my head how you guys centralize all this stuff. So basically, obviously you have software, so you can pinpoint different data points, and then you can make lists out of it, and then you can tell them where to focus and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, and then you improve you can help them improve the revenue, their efficiency by pinpointing where the dips are, the holes, right?
Yeah, and basically like taking all the data together, right? You like you said, to be able to say, let me look at my conversion rate by marketing channel, right? That means that you kind of have to take some of the marketing data that could live in AdWords or Facebook or wherever you're advertising, combine that with your clickstream data, and then combine that with your transaction data, because a lot of times folks are maybe only looking at ROI from like a revenue perspective and not maybe a margin perspective, right? That's just one of those things, right? Like where you're saying, okay, what are the high margin things that I'm selling versus the low margin things that I'm selling, and how much am I spending, customer acquisition costs and things like that. So having a full picture where you can start to slice and dice the data, and also having like marketing people actually slice and dice the data themselves, because can't typically code, right? And so they're not able to get the data at the level that they want. So really that's the other piece, is making sure that we can get data to everybody.
All right. So what tools do you recommend for businesses to use to bring the data, to pile up the data, I guess, pile it all up?
Yeah, there's a lot of different tools out there, right? So, I mean, on the very technical end of the side, we can build out, API calls and data pipelines using something like Airflow, which is an open source kind of data orchestration framework. There's other off-the-shelf technologies like Fivetran, which takes data from very common data sources like Facebook ads, AdWords, et cetera, and moves it into something like Snowflake. So sometimes we're able to leverage off-the-shelf software for a lot of really common things. But when you're talking about very large enterprises, a lot of times they don't have common sources, right? They could be using agencies that send them flat files like CSVs, or they use SFTP sites. They have weird internal systems that nobody else has. So a lot of times in the enterprise, at least, there's a pretty heavy customization aspect that we have to do to grab the data and centralize it. And then, of course, even once the data is raw and in something like a Snowflake, you still have to make business meaning out of it, right? You know what I mean? You have to take the rows and columns and tables, which are all database concepts, foreign to most business people, and then turn it into concepts like customers and orders and conversions and margin and stuff like that. So there's a really, a lot of what we do is actually spending that time in the transformation process. Once the data has been ingested into something like Snowflake, transforming it to make it into business meaning.
Okay, so pixels. How much do you know about pixels and tracking and all that?
I mean, it's like, let me put it this way. I'm not an expert in the full marketing technology stack by
Right.
any means, but quite familiar with a lot of it. And this is something that we help our customers with, is sort of taking a lot of the data that gets generated from app downloads, conversions from ads, and things like that, and personalization, right? Of how to actually target folks. So that's certainly what we work with. But again, not the cookie expert. Probably a lot
Right.
about that
So
as well.
let me see if we can like both help each other out
Yeah.
here. So all right. So basically, essentially, the way the pixel works, to keep it simple, is it keeps track of you as a user. There's events that happen on a website, purchase, add to cart, all that stuff, and then that information is sent back to Facebook. Now with the iOS 14 update, Apple's it's basically blocking all of that. And it's not only Facebook; it's everybody. So if the user doesn't actively opt in to be okay to be quote unquote tracked, all that information is being blocked. So now we have attribution issues. Like it's a
Yep.
nightmare. Like, if you're running Google ads, TikTok and Facebook and you have organic traffic, you have no idea where half of the traffic is coming from, half of your sales, which makes my job super difficult. So ever since that happened with Apple, how have you seen the shift affect your industry with those
Yeah,
e-commerce sites?
it's a good question. I mean, it's really been trying to drive more first party data and first party, because like that's really where we've seen a lot of limiting functionality across
So
different.
first party data for someone like me, when I think of first party data, I'm talking about if I'm trying to get their phone number, first name, last name, and email address. I mean, that's the first party data that I can think of that I can get from them without having to stalk their whole life, and they have to be willingly to give it to you. So that's what you're referring to as first party data. Anything else?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think you're still able to track sort of activity on your own website, right? And so that's still possible, right?
You can track the activity, but again, if it's an Apple user, that
Yep.
information is not going back to, like, let's say Facebook, that's what I specialize in.
Yeah.
So Facebook can optimize that ad set or that campaign
Right.
that's running because it's not getting the data back. And
Right.
I did read, I know they're working on it. They're rebuilding the whole ad platform from scratch. And they said it's going to take a minimum of 5 years to redo it, which is, to
That's
me, it's like
crazy.
insane.
Well, I mean, that's the issue, right? Is like Google now is going to have the only ability to do that because it's kind of in the walled ecosystem within Google, right? Because Google's coming also out with their own alternative to the third party cookies as
They
well.
paused the project though. They just
Oh, is
announced
that
it.
right? I
Yeah,
didn't
they
see that.
stopped it.
No.
They're like,
Okay.
"Oh, we're
All
pausing
right.
it for now."
Well,
So
probably
who
because
knows
of
what happened there?
oh,
Now, my
geez.
question is, and I was actually talking to somebody before we got on here, is my best friend who's in finance. He was asking me all about it because I try to keep up with technology and all that. And he's like, "What is Apple doing with all that data?" I'm like, dude, okay, data it's money, obviously, but if it's
Yep.
just sitting there, I mean, obviously it's not worth anything. But who are they selling it to? What are they doing? I'm like, my only guess at this point, because Suck came out and he said we see Apple as a competitor, is
Yeah.
that they've been working on their own social media platform, and that one day they're just gonna go and be like, listen, here it is. It's all private. We care about your privacy, just like we did with your phones. And this is going to be the best social media network ever because we don't intrude in your data or sell it to anybody. Meanwhile, they're going to let you run ads. That's the
Right.
only answer that I have for that, because what else can they do with that data besides for, inside purposes, like for
Well,
their
yeah, I
own
mean that's what I was gonna
purposes?
say is I think they still have sponsored posts or sponsored app store listings and stuff like that, and that's been one of the areas that I think has been really hit hard. We have some clients that are in like the casual gaming and mobile gaming space, and they're really having difficulty, attributing downloads to ad spend, right? And so, I think probably, I mean, my this is sort of my just off the cuff thought here, but like
Yeah.
essentially if you can still advertise your app on the App Store, Apple will still be able to optimize and use that data and then attribute it back, and they'll be the only ones who can actually provide the attribution So that'll cut out all the third party kind of app download ads and things like that. But that's just, again, speculation on my end. But, again, to your point, they're going to use that data somehow to monetize it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, there's an end goal to it. It's just, we don't know what it is. I mean, I'm guessing the whole social media network thing is because, they came out with, the messaging. The messaging is just like, WhatsApp and Messenger. It's over data. It's not like a text message anymore if you're going from iPhone to iPhone, right? So you got that. That's the first sign. 2, they push the emojis really hard, like make yourself an avatar. It's like,
and you pay for it.
Like it's so obvious to me. And then the third blow of like, we're gonna wall everything off so nobody else gets this data. I was like,
that's my point.
Like, this is like the super capitalism move of like, I'm gonna kill my competitors type of deal.
Yep. And that's what I'm saying.
I mean, so that's
the App Store.
Again, speculation.
Right. They control the App Store. They control all these different aspects, right? They control the phone. They can control what's downloaded onto the phone, all that kind of stuff, right? And, you saw that with the App Store fees, right? And the in-app payments and sort of the Epic Apple sort of court case where, they're trying to basically get around the fees that Apple takes for in-app payments. And, they're just using all that leverage.
I'm 50-50 on that one. And I'm going to tell you why, because I'm all about capitalism, right? I mean, if you come up with it and you figure it out, you should be able to make that money.
True.
And let's face it, without all those Apple iPhones, you won't be making that money anyway.
Oh, for sure.
It's their audience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
Part of me goes, guess what? They own it, dude. I mean, you're on their platform and you let it happen. There's only another Android. That's it. Nobody else came to the game, and we're here for a reason.
Yep.
So,
no, I agree. I mean,
but then I see the developer side of things. Like I could imagine if my stores, like I will have to give 30% of every sale to Apple. I mean, that's why I don't sell on Amazon because 1, they take like 30% on fees, and 2, I don't get the email list. And that's the most valuable thing that I can have. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can get sales on Amazon, but then, I'll get sales. But then I can tell you right now, even if it's trademark, like 10 Chinese companies are going to come out and copy everything and put a different name on it. Then I have to deal with all the trademark stuff. Right. And then half of them won't be taken down. And it's like, what is it? Like a Hydra. You chop one head off and then there's another one comes up.
The other one.
So, I mean, at least I'm in the type of products where it's a real brand and I don't have to go the Amazon route. So that's why I don't do it, because it's a wall of garden as well. Like you don't have control. What happens if they wake up one day and shut down my store?
Yeah, I know.
I lost ad accounts with Facebook business managers. Like my personal account got restricted. Like it's scary, man. It really is scary.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm saying is like, people are trying to like with the first party data, but also just trying to make sure that they own the customer relationship because they realize that that's the most valuable piece, and they can't basically give their customer relationship to whether it's Apple, Google, Amazon, whoever, Facebook. And that's really the key. I mean, otherwise, like, you won't get repeat business. You won't be able to build a brand. And I think, I personally in the e-commerce space am excited by Shopify, and Shopify has been really cool to see. Like as a consumer, I love Shop Pay, right? I just go on the same website, my credit card saved, my address is saved, one click, I just check out. But I still know the brand that I'm buying from, you know what I mean? I know the website and it's like, creating all these niche brands and things like that, which are really cool, so it's neat. And I hope that, when we were at Etsy, we were like, oh man, Shopify is awesome. They're doing a lot of cool stuff, and it's a different type of marketplace than Etsy, but at the same time, it basically is a great platform, both for consumers and I would imagine for other brands.
Yeah, Etsy's pretty cool, man. I actually slept on Etsy. I should have bought this stock when I had the chance. I totally, for some reason, it was so under the radar for me because, I always knew it was there, but I always thought of like, oh, it's like the mom that makes T-shirts on the side.
Yeah, totally. I think that was definitely what it used to be. Yeah.
And I was so like concentrating on Shopify at the time, like building brands and stuff like that it's my own fault, man. It went right by me. I'm like, then when I realized, I'm like, shit, I'm late. I can still probably buy this stock and it still go up. But
yeah, well, I was gonna say they've been doing a good job, and the team has been really hard at work. I know a lot of folks still obviously that work there and stuff, and it's been a journey though, right? I mean, like it hasn't been easy. I know, like when I was there right when they went public, and then probably for like 6 months or so after, for a couple earnings reports after they went public. And, it was a lot different then than it is now. And so the team has made a lot of progress to, build out new revenue streams and increase growth.
I always use Etsy and Amazon. Etsy, especially Etsy. the perfect example for a high converting page. Like if you
Yeah.
go to the product page, I love everything about it. The reviews, then like only
Yep.
so many left, like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's what you need. That's been, how many millions of dollars have been spent split testing that?
Well,
That's
that's
what
what I
you
was
need to
gonna
do on your
say.
store, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say they and when we were there, we would, it was really a cool culture of like experimentation, A/B testing, real data driven culture, and that was really kind of a lot of the things that helped me start my company, which was like learning all that from both Etsy, the folks that worked there, other folks on the data teams, like great data engineers, great data scientists, great data analytics folks. So I learned so much from them, and to your point, like that was exactly what they did. Everything that was released on the site was an experiment. Everything was split tested, or they had all kinds of really great internal dashboards that would show you the different conversion rates, and we would test all kinds of things all the time. So it was really cool to see that. So learned a ton.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you haven't, like, not people in this business, but like, people who are not in this business. I'm like, we see everything. And then they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, dude, it's like a camera on you. I have videos of
Yeah,
every single person that lands on my site. I'm
totally.
like, you'll be amazed what a difference can make changing the button color from green to
Hmm.
Amazon orange in your store. Like, or the other way around. It's crazy. Normal people don't think about that. I'm like, yeah, man,
Yeah.
data.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you're right. Like even on the Amazon, like buy box, I mean, all the different experiments that they run on Amazon, and I know they do a whole ton of stuff, but a lot of people knock Amazon's product page because it looks kind of janky, a little
It's ugly,
old
but guess
school.
what?
Yeah,
It
it
works.
works. It definitely
Yeah.
works. They know it works.
I tell people all the time too, like funnels. I build so many stores and funnels and all that, like between myself and clients and all that.
Yeah.
And my favorite, not my favorite one because it really pissed me off, but I built this funnel and literally I think it was an hour and a half. Like I just threw it together on ClickFunnels just to throw it out there and test it and see if it works, to test the idea. Built it from scratch. It wasn't even a template. It was just black background, headline, VSL that I recorded, some copy, a couple images, and then, the typical structure, and then go. And it worked. So I'm like, okay, I got something. Like, this proof of concept. Like, people want this. And then
Yep.
I literally spent, between designers, custom code, and I don't know how much, like thousands of dollars to make it into the most beautiful funnel you can think of. And guess which one won at the end? The ugly one.
The original one, yeah.
The ugly one, by far, dude. I was so pissed off because it was such a waste of time and money.
Yeah.
And I was obsessed with how good the B looked. And I couldn't believe that A won every single time, even with different headlines.
See that, I mean, but it's funny because this is exactly what we see our customers do is we see them a lot of times, um, have opinions over data, right? And it's like, well, at the end of the day, data wins, and we need to make sure that we're talking about stuff in a way that's quantifiable. If you have an opinion and I have an opinion, right? Like then, I mean, we all have opinions, right? So, but like
Yeah.
data is going to mediate it, right? Data is going to tell us what to do. And in reality, when you talk about, say, spending a couple $1,000s on redesigning the funnel, probably you saved a lot of money because if you would have asked anyone on the street, they would have been like, yeah, go with that one, right? And then actually, if you had implemented that one for the long term, you would have missed out on all these other sales, right? So
Right.
that probably cost you a whole ton of money. And the fact that you split tested it and actually, gathered the data rather than opinions is super important. So yeah, it's very interesting.
I'm always down for split testing everything. You have to.
Yeah.
What's your tech stack, or what tech stack do you recommend for, like, companies that are like not really, maybe starting out, but like, they're already on their way up, to keep track of all this stuff? Because I guess you don't really need to until you start getting a steady, heavy amount of sales.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we get this a lot. I mean, and most of our customers that we work with probably start to be like, 250, 300 person employee companies. So like at the smaller stage, right? Google Analytics is always a great place to start on your website, right? Nothing wrong there. And that'll get you a lot of, that'll get you a long way. And we do see folks in Excel and other sort of spreadsheet tools. And eventually though, what happens is, Google Analytics starts to not meet your needs, and you think about premium, Google Analytics Premium, which is very expensive. And then spreadsheets start to break down because spreadsheets don't have what we call, governance around them, right? It's like you can edit your spreadsheet, I'll edit my spreadsheet, and now we have different numbers again. So that's really the challenge that we try to solve for. But our stack is Snowflake, Fivetran, and something like Looker, ThoughtSpot, or Tableau, like a BI tool for reporting. And basically, like I said, the technology is basically a means to an end, right? It's like we're always trying to centralize the data, standardize the data, and then get the data to everyone. Those three things, you can do that with a lot of different technologies out there.
I'm glad you mentioned Snowflake. I own stock in them. I own the stock.
Yeah, Snowflake. We're actually an elite partner of Snowflake, so we have a very pretty decent Snowflake practice, and we've done a lot of implementations around Snowflake. So that's a big driver for our business, as well as folks actually moving to Snowflake from legacy type of technologies like Teradata and Netezza, Vertica, a bunch of these old enterprise kind of data warehouse that were on-prem, very difficult to work with, very expensive, and Snowflake just makes it so easy. So even businesses that are much smaller than big enterprises, Snowflake offers a pay as you go. You just put in your credit card, and you spend a couple $100s a month, on that. If that's something that for medium sized folks, it's really easy to work with.
So let me ask you something now. Now that I'm thinking about data, and where we're heading to, so obviously, Zuck is working on the metaverse. You got crypto. You got all the technology that we already have, and it's moving forward at an amazing pace. And requires all these server farms and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Where are we going to store all this stuff, man? Like at one point, what are we going to do? I mean,
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. It's a really good question. I mean, like it's I can't even remember the statistics, but they're staggering. How much data has been generated in just like the last year or two, right? This is what the data centers are. Like Facebook, for example, Google, other folks, really big companies. AWS, obviously, Google Cloud, they're building out gigantic data centers. And I've seen some crazy proposals to like putting data centers underwater and stuff like that so that they cool better, and they put them in the Arctic or something.
Yeah, there's one that's inside a mountain in Switzerland, I think it is.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember who it is, but it's like it's inside a mountain, like underground. Actually, it's like I think it's part of the Federal Reserve, so that's why it's like secret. But they have to keep it cool because of all the data or something. It's government servers or something.
Yeah, exactly. And it's pretty neat. If you've ever gone to a data center, it looks really cool, and it's very interesting to kind of figure out how that all that stuff works together. But something like Amazon S3, right? A very popular sort of storage service, that we use a ton. It essentially is infinitely scalable. I mean, like for practitioners, like for the practical purposes, you'll never need to have to worry about running out of space on Amazon S3. You know what I mean? It's just like
right.
that crazy, right? But to your point, now you're starting to talk. Now you're starting to talk about video, audio, of course, all the sort of click data, just the full set of streaming data that you have. It's out of control. It's nuts, and it's very difficult to handle all that. But that's what the cloud providers are there for. Although we've seen a lot of customers start to think about how to minimize cloud costs, because cloud costs have gotten out of control. And you saw Cloudflare come out with an S3 competitor just recently, and that's something that I think is interesting to watch. But long story short, I think we're almost seeing a little bit of a once you get to a certain scale, you have to go back to a data center almost, because otherwise the costs are prohibitive. But only really, really large companies can do that.
So how do you think the game's going to change once like quantum computing, we take in quantum computing, and I wouldn't say mainstream, but once it starts hitting those data centers and all that stuff, how far away do you think we are from that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It seems like we're still pretty far from that. I mean, It still seems pretty, research based and academic, and pretty theoretical in some senses. But I mean, when you think about the algorithms that are out there for like machine learning algorithms, recommendation algorithms, and we saw this at Etsy, even doing something as simple as saying like this product, is similar to this other product, and we should recommend these two products together. If you think about it, Etsy has, I don't know, hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of sellers and items. And when you sort of combine those things, like the permutations are huge, right? You have hundreds of thousands of items, you have thousands of sellers, thousands of buyers, et cetera, right? And start to put those things into like a matrix basically, and then you have to compute all the different scores. So I think, having something like quantum computing out there is going to really open up a lot of possibilities for machine learning, because those type of things, even when we were at Etsy, would take, like a day to run this algorithm and compute all the output just to, show you what to recommend on the website. So something like that, if it goes from taking a day to, minutes, seconds, right, with quantum computing, then it's going to open up a lot more possibilities. And a lot more people are going to be able to access those type of things, because you're right, the data sizes just keep growing, right? So it makes the computations even more complex. And so data size keeps growing, computation power needs to keep pace with it. And obviously, or maybe not obviously, but recently,
computation power hasn't really been keeping up with the data storage requirements.
Well, the reason why I want to know about it so bad is because I'm thinking in terms of running my campaigns. Like, man, I can't even imagine what it would be like to hit go and get like it optimizes like literally in minutes instead of
having
it to go for 7 days to like. But people don't think about that. I mean, like Facebook, they have what, 2 billion users, and then you set an ad campaign, and it's an auction. It's a very complicated algorithm. I mean, it's not
exactly.
it's not just like, oh, here, I know exactly where to put the ad.
Well, it's a lot of problems are kind of trivial at a low scale, at a small scale, but they become very, very hard at very, very large scale. So, to your point, like Facebook is running these campaigns. I mean, how many campaigns are they running? I mean, millions of campaigns, if not billions of campaigns. You know what I mean? And they have billions of users. So to be able to optimize that stuff really, really quickly is a hard problem. And it's made all the more hard by all the scale that they have. So, having that computational power increase like by orders of magnitude, it's going to be a game changer.
Absolutely. Like, I think when Facebook went down the other day for like 6.5 hours, and I can't remember if it was a minute or an hour. I think I'm going to say a minute, but don't come crucify me for it, because I'm telling you right now, I can't remember if it's a minute or an hour, but they were losing on the outage. They lost like ad revenue was $200K.
Wow.
But I can't remember if it was a minute or an hour. I want to say, because I see a lot of campaigns, I want to say a minute, because
I would think so.
Yeah, everybody is spending all that money together. So that gives you an idea right there of like how many people are advertising at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly right.
All right, man. We're out of time already. See, I love podcasts like this. It just flies, and then you get through it and you have a good time. And this was 100. So, Nick, where can everybody find you at, man? DAS42. So where can everybody find you, find the company, all that good stuff?
It's just DAS42.com. Happy to chat with anybody. It's my email address is nick@DAS42.com. So simple enough. Let us know. Feel free to stop by the website, drop me a line. Always happy to help.
Absolutely. And I'll have like all the good, all the links in the description. All that's the good stuff there. Nick, really, truly enjoyed, man. Thanks again for coming on, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. Really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. See ya.